Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. Happy holidays. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, more and more Arab neighbors joining in on a chorus of condemnations against Israel amidst the ongoing clashes in Jerusalem. Meantime, Israel seemingly overcorrecting in hopes of restoring calm. Non-Muslims temporarily banned from the Temple Mount, and the annual flag march in Jerusalem put under restrictions. Then finally, in light of the positive trends, Israel doing away with some of the last remaining coronavirus restrictions. The seemingly competitive political virtue signaling now spreading. This as the United Arab Emirates and Turkey joining behind Jordan in condemning alleged Israeli aggressions on the Temple Mount, but doing very little else to back up their fury beyond rhetoric. ILTV's Asaf Nissan with more.
The UN and US making relatively weak efforts to restore calm in Jerusalem and recent calls to Israel, Jordan, and the PA. U.S. Secretary of State Blinken reporting discussions with the PA chairman Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Foreign Minister Yair Lapid. But taking notes from Amman, Abu Dhabi now the next to summon its Israeli ambassador for a dressing down. Further, the UAE pulling out of the so-called peace flyby of 2022, which was set for the Israeli Independence Day. The Emirates saying that they strongly oppose the alleged attacks on civilians and invasions to holy places, as police in Jerusalem continue to crack down on the violence at top of the Temple Mount. Violence instigated by Palestinian terror groups against Jewish civilians in the area. Then in additionally broad statements, the UAE calling for Jordan's religious Waqf authority to be respected, and for long-stalled Israel-Palestinian peace talks to resume. Likewise, Turkish President Erdogan calling for the status quo to be preserved in order to maintain peace and freedom of worship for all religions. But the Palestinian Authority repeatedly praising the terror attacks against Israeli and Jewish civilians, making peace talks a non-starter. Also, no threats to the Muslim governance at the mosque have occurred, with Israel even busing hundreds of thousands of Palestinians from Judea and Samaria to the Al-Aqsa Mosque for Ramadan, and this despite an uptick in anti-Israel violence every year around the holiday. In fact, while scheduled and limited non-Muslim visitations is allowed, Jews still the only religious group legally banned from praying at the Temple Mount, and this ban lasting all year round.
So what do the new criticisms mean for regional ties between Israel and its Arab neighbors? With me to discuss is Arab world geopolitics expert at NYU and the Moshe Dayan Center, Dr. Joshua Krasna. Thanks for joining. Now, pretty much everyone says that this is political rhetoric and not to be taken too seriously, but would you agree?
Yes and no. First of all, this rhetoric is not new. About once a year, and sometimes more often, we have this tension around, regarding the Temple Mount, Haram al-Sharif, which is really sort of the almost the weak spot of all of our bilateral relations, except maybe with Egypt, but is also sort of the spark that really lights the Muslim street throughout the world, not only in the countries where we have peace agreements, but everywhere else. Because the narrative that Al-Aqsa is threatened is extremely powerful, and as I say, at least once a year for the past at least decade, gets the Arab, the Muslim publics very worked up, and that then influences their governments as well. We had it last year, we had it the year before. It's been going on for a long time. It's a little bit new in the UAE context, which maybe we can, in Bahraini context, which maybe we can mention afterwards. But in the Jordanian context, unfortunately, it's an issue that keeps on coming up.
So is the UAE response understandable, or should we expect more nuance and balance, or even support for Israel to some degree after the Abraham Accords?
Well, I sort of always raise an eyebrow about this issue of support for Israel. The problem is simply this: the perception in the Muslim world, the perception in Jordan, is that there is a creeping change
To watch full episodes of ILTV's Israel Daily and tons of other content from Israel, visit our website at iltv.tv or download the ILTV Plus app.